All right, everybody. Hi. I am going to talk today about learning pathways as a snackable learning tool for your organization. Just a little bit about me. I'm a principal architect for Simpraxis Consulting. I am a Microsoft MVP and a Patterns and Practices team member. And I am I'm not a co-maintainer anymore. I am the maintainer of the Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways repository. And there'll be a link to that in just a couple of minutes. So I wanted to start by just, sort of sharing with folks what Learning Pathways is for those that don't know yet, and for those that might need a refresher. So Learning Pathways is a customizable learning platform that was originally conceived with a partnership from Microsoft and the MVP community. It is a micro-learning platform. Joy Apple, who's another MVP, I was talking with her about learning pathways, and she coined this phrase called snackable learning, which means the same thing. It's not a full meal, it's just a snack. It's a little bite size. I want to learn about one skill or two skills. And so that's really what learning pathways is about. It can also be a custom learning platform. And allows you the opportunity to blend Microsoft created content around different products with your own custom content through SharePoint pages or through external content. Now, there are a couple of different features. The first is a web part that you can use to embed in any SharePoint page. So if you've built your intranet using SharePoint, you can embed different learning pathways playlists on those pages contextually. There's also a Teams tab, so you can add it to any team that you'd like, and a personal app to enable learning in all sorts of different locations based on your users. It has support for 10 different languages: English, German, French, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Dutch, and I think one more. But there's 10, there's 10, trust me. And it lets you do custom content for your own business processes through SharePoint pages. We can include external content URLs if that data can be iframed as well as that. And we have the ability to create custom content packs if you want to create a totally custom version of this for your organization. And lastly, we just added this, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, the feature for custom web analytics. So you can plug this in, and we have a webhook that fires that you can then, plug into a SharePoint list and then run reports in Power BI. All right, so why would you want to use learning pathways? The first is to provide training for Microsoft-related products to your end users. I've been working with SharePoint a really long time, and back when I started, there were entire industries devoted to training users on how to use Office and how to use the different tools within the Microsoft suite. And with the product changing so rapidly, it's really hard for you as an individual or a content organizer or a trainer to keep all that material up to date. Learning Pathways pulls content from there, and you don't have to worry about keeping that content up to date. It's also ability to create a central repository for all your training materials. And it can also support other training modalities. So it's not just on-demand training. If you're doing a classroom training, you could create a playlist or a page with all the data for follow-up activity, or to support homework for that classroom training. Or for in-person meetings, you can provide different pieces of content related to those different things as support materials. And lastly, it also supports a decentralized content creation model. Which means that you can have the people that write the policies, write the content, actually write it, and you don't have to give permissions under the sun to the one training location. All right, I do see there's some questions in the chat. Yeah, I didn't mention that. This is a free tool, 100% free, community supported and community owned. And there'll be links on how you can grab this and install it in just a couple minutes. Now, we have some big changes that happened in the last few months. We had a functional release for version 5, We had a huge content update that just went out a couple of weeks ago. Everything's Copilot, Copilot, Copilot. So there was loads of Copilot content that got added. For those of you that have used the tool, this sort of ended the drought of content updates that had been quite some time. And that's going to lead to my next slide. But we also released, we are also open for content requests. This means that if you see content in the, or if you open the tool and you don't see some content on a product or a tool that you want to see, let us know and we can help add that. We also had a bunch of technical updates. We really needed to sort of give it some spring cleaning, and we updated the SharePoint framework version, the PNP.js version. We made it more accessible for folks with disabilities. We added a sticky search box to let you search for data. Like I mentioned, the custom analytics webhook, a sticky header, and then a bunch of bug fixes that have been sort of sticking around. But the big news, and this is really one of the things of why I am here today, is Learning Pathways is now 100% community supported. And what I mean by this is that Microsoft traditionally had sort of funded the development effort for like big efforts and was in charge of all the content that was being published out. There were some challenges around getting sort of timely updates to content, and there are some content gaps that didn't get addressed. And what this means now is that we, the community, you, me, are responsible for making updates. You can make requests for new content. I will review this. Hopefully this will lead to quicker content updates and better response time to community needs. And I think this is really, really, really important. I've been working on this with the Microsoft folks for a while now, and I think this is really big news. All right, so enough about that. Let's see what the tool is and what we can do with it. So here's an example of the site template with learning pathways embedded in it. There's also different pages around different pieces of work, like work remotely or Microsoft 365 training. Let's look at this one. And this is the training page. This is going to list all the different playlists that we have in Microsoft 365. So you can see some scenarios like working remotely, but really this is all about the products. So we've got content for all the different projects, the Viva Suite, Copilot, Office. Users can then come in and click on the M365 Copilot, and they can get all of the data, all of the playlists that are related to the Copilot. And you can see here, this is the individual asset. You can click back and forth between the two. You can navigate different pieces, like I said, snackable learning. In the event that you want to, you can actually view this in full screen mode. And this will open a layer, and then it'll open the asset on top. You can choose to navigate this. This is very helpful if for some reason you put it in like a 1/3 column on a SharePoint page. All right, and that's just at a very high level. I'm throwing out a lot of terms, so I'm going to go very quickly through these so that we all have a common understanding. We have things called categories. These are not editable. These are like getting started scenarios. We've got subcategories. These are the different products here. You can use the existing ones or create custom ones. You can choose to show or hide different subcategories. So if you don't support access in your organization, you can hide that information. And then we've got playlists. You can show or hide those. You can use the existing ones or create custom ones. We've got subcategories, like I said, and different playlists. Inside those playlists, we've got a whole bunch of information. These are the 10 languages. Anything that is coming from learn.microsoft.com, it has translations for all 10 of those languages. If you create your own custom content, you'd be responsible for creating those translations. But at its core, you've got a bunch of different content in multiple languages. All of these things is what is part of the translation. Then we've got assets. You can't right now edit any of the assets that are in a Microsoft sourced playlist, so the ones that I create for you. But you can create a copy of those and you can remove them if need be. You can add your own subcategories. This is what I do all the time, and we'll see those sources in a second. You can add in the different translations. Once you're done, you have the ability to add new playlists. These are the playlists. So here's how to add a vendor, and you can again add different translations. And then from there, you can add the individual sort of snackable bits of learning, either from SharePoint pages or from Microsoft, from learn.microsoft.com. Now, that was a whirlwind. I know I talked really fast, but I have 20 minutes and I'm halfway through. All right, so we've got a couple of different user stories or use cases that I like to do with my clients related to Microsoft 365 learning pathways. The first is just what you saw at the beginning. It's an on-demand learning portal for Microsoft products, as well as your own individual internal processes. You can access this through Teams in the desktop client, in the mobile app, or through SharePoint. And here's what it looks like. This is the learning site that we just saw, specific to the products. This is the exact same thing, only this is a Teams app inside of this is a Teams app, a personal app inside of Teams. And so here we're just looking at the playlists related to Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, something that I use this a lot for is departmental sites. This lets us provide training in context for users where they work. So if they're working in Teams, they can get this data inside of Teams. If they're working inside of a SharePoint site for their internal collaborations, they can do that and get training there. We can provide specific training to specific business units. So think the accounting team may need more information related to Excel. So we can fine tune that. Or marketing may need PowerPoint and Word support. And this helps us drive learning by changing the content to raise the technical literacy of the organization. By providing this ad hoc or on-demand training, we're getting this to the point where users can self-serve and they don't need to wait for a specific training class to come from IT. So here's an example of an accounting team site where we've embedded this the Learning Pathways web part on the page. We've created the featured learning. Today, we've decided to highlight formulas and functions because the accounting team needs to learn about new formulas and functions in Excel. If we scroll down the page, they can navigate through and go to the different pieces of the playlists. And then when they scroll down, they can actually see, this is the X lookup function, and they can go through the other different items here. Now, this is great if they're using a SharePoint site for their department collaboration. However, if they're using Teams, maybe we want a different approach. So you can add this as a Teams tab inside. Now, in this instance, I just added it to the general channel, but you could create a learning channel inside the accounting tab. And I called it featured training, and I specifically configured the web part to focus on Excel. And so this way they can come in here, and if they're working here, they can click in and learn about formatting or functions or whatever it is that they need to learn about. And this can be changed so that as people's technical literacy changes, you can actually increase the level of knowledge and make it more accessible to folks. Okay. The other thing that you can do is provide instructions for custom applications. Whether that's a Power App or an agent that you've created, or just a custom web-based application, you can create custom tools specifically for that. And you can provide that support contextually for that application. So here we've got our partner order management. We want to go create a quote. We've got our form here. We're going to start filling out the form. We're going to get through partway and we're going to go, oh, wait, hang on. My partner isn't in this list. How do I add a partner? Well, traditionally, you'd have to go ask somebody or pick up the phone or go search the intranet. Here, we've got the information right here on the screen. We've embedded it on the page. This is a little small, so we can open this up to the full window. We can see all the content on how to onboard a new partner, fill out the partner agreement, and now we can be on our way. We can get it added, and then we can go on our way and finish the form. So it's really reducing that interrupt-driven work by providing the knowledge for our users straight out of the gate. Now, one thing that's important about custom applications is that distributed content architecture. So, for instance, IT may support the instructions for this custom application around technical things. How do you log into it? How do you work with, click this button and do that thing? Whereas procurement might have the policy related to, how to onboard that new vendor, and then accounting needs a piece of the puzzle after they've been onboarded. What you can do is take that information, create all the data for that inside the communication sites of those individual locations. So for instance, IT can go write their own instructions. We can knit that all together in a single playlist inside of Learning Pathways, and then embed that playlist inside the partner order management. So we have a lot of different functionality that we can start to pull together. And then procurement doesn't need access to IT's information, accounting doesn't need access to procurement's information, and we don't have a knowledge manager who's now trying to source content edits every time somebody updates a piece of functionality in the software. All right, now we can also use this for business process guidelines, how to create step-by-step instructions and documentation for processes. So we can do something like your end of year review process, right? And do that kind of thing. Think onboarding, think review process. Here's our review resources page. We're providing information. We've got an overall process for the entire year-end review, where you can come in and see all of the information here. You can backtrack if you're an employee. You read the guidelines for employee self-review. And now we can do the manager review process. So if you're a manager, you can get the guidelines for how to do your management review. So you can start to see that there's a lot of different things that we can do with Learning Pathways. The last thing I do is, and we do this just about for every client, the other thing you can do is communication around governance decisions, using this as a governance site. And we can share information on how to do things, let champions provide that documentation, how to add an image web part, how to create a page. What's our guidance for better practices around creating communication sites? We can do all of that with this site. And it provides a support and community and helps drive adoption, as well as skills building for your champions. So here we've got a champion site. We can come in here and we can provide guidelines around intranet best practices or team site best practices. We can help filter the content, and then we can provide that information to those end users where they're at and help provide more guidance on what we're doing. All right. So that was kind of a whirlwind. I spoke really fast. So the last thing is, how do you get involved if you want to? So the first things first, if you see a hole in the content in the application, please submit a content request. We can support any content from support.microsoft.com right now. If you submit a topic and a list of assets that you'd like included, I'll review those and then I'll add them. I can add them with our scheduled content updates. If you have a question, you can put that in the repository and ask a question there. I'm the one that answers most of them, so feel free, and I will do my best. If you see a hole in the, if you'd like a feature added, you could make a request for a feature request. I will do my best. It is a volunteer effort, so I can't make everything happen. But I do my best. And if you've used Learning Pathways, you can help answer questions in the repository. So really, it can be a back and forth for the entire community. And lastly, the location for all of that is github.com/Microsoft Learning. And I will put that in the chat right now. There we go. And with that, I want to say thank you to Vesa and thank you to all of you for listening.